Goody, goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft. And, hey, how's it going?
Hey-o!
Doing good.
So, this technically is episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, number 1.
Yep, we got this.
We got this.
Pilot.
Well, it's the pilot, but actually in our line, we did episode 2 before we did number 1 because I have a cat, and the cat likes to knock over recorders.
It was a quiet desperation and sadness when we realized this awesome show we had done for you guys was like totally jacked. It was so bad.
Yeah,
but she's
really
a very
sucked.
cute cat, so it was okay.
And on top of that, since this is number 1 and it's gonna be full of bugs, we have John joining us via Skype, which took maybe about an hour.
I mean, we set it up now, so we know what we're doing now. Where the hell are you again, John?
Honestly, I don't even remember. I just drive to these places and I can't recall. It's probably why I probably sound maybe a little bit off here. That and maybe I just have a grating voice. So if you hear me on other episodes and you also don't like the sound, then you just don't care for the sound of my voice. But if you don't, then it's just the fact that I am currently over Skype here as my two colleagues are live in the studio without me.
Yeah, you're the remote special guest star from a little bit further east of us here. We're in Pittsburgh. That's where we broadcast from. And so and occasionally you may be on the road. You do have to travel for your 9 to 5, as some people do.
Yep.
So, but yeah, headquarters for us here is in Pittsburgh. And since this is episode 1, I guess we'll just go into it. The three of us met in graduate school.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, John and I have the same last name because we are married, not because we're siblings.
And that was always a joke.
If you thought siblings, you're gross.
That was always a joke in college. Grad school was, every class you went to, the instructor would always be like, "So are you two like brother and sister? That's so adorable."
And then we'd be like, "Uh-huh," and then ferociously make out like 3 classes later.
Yep.
We should have just lied about it for years and then just made out one
Just
class.
ruined people's lives, basically. I don't understand. Is it that strange for for a married couple to be in the same field?
I don't think so.
People assumed we were siblings, and when they hear like that we're married and we both work in film, they're both like, "What? You guys work together? Oh my God, I'd kill my husband or my wife." It's like, oh well, maybe you're doing it wrong.
I guess so.
I don't know. I'm biased.
Yeah. But basically, this show, since it's number 1, really the goal is to discuss movies, film culture, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And just basically rip on movies that we find detestable or we love. And,
Yeah.
lovingly rip on them.
Yeah, I mean, there would be loving, of course. I mean, basically, we all studied this shit for like 10 years. We all have 2 degrees in it, so we want to talk about it like it's our thing. So that's how we feel about it.
And what movies have you worked on either?
So, I mean, I did my documentary for graduate school, Nip Tuck Click, coming soon to an Edinburgh University near you. I do have a screening at the end of March that'll be part of the Women's History Month programming for Edinburgh University. That's where I went to undergrad. So,
Right.
So that's my big claim to fame.
John, what's your film bona fides?
Well, I guess the easiest way to say it is that I'm involved in short film, documentary, industrial video, and trying to hopefully at some point this year, if I don't get delayed so much, actually launch a YouTube channel. We're doing kind of what we're doing here, so hopefully this will be kind of one in the same between the podcast and the YouTube channel.
And it'll be a nice accoutrement. They will complement each other, and it's adorable. You say sometime this year, like, I'm not going to ride your ass until you do it.
Again, another benefit of being married and doing film and video.
He's doomed.
He's doomed. My film bona fides, again, we went to grad school, but I mainly do horror films. Prior to this podcast, I was part of a podcast called Dagger Vision Films Horror Talk Radio with my former partner, Johnny Daggers. And I mean, that kind of just got me into the whole podcasting thing because I saw how easy it was. And of course, I say that after it took us an hour.
I mean, we have a nice audio
but
setup here, though. Like, this sounds real beautiful.
Yeah.
Y'all may know me as L.A. Croft on Super Serials. That's my main podcast. We're almost 40 episodes deep in that one. We've been doing that since June of last year. So I've been doing that one for like a hot minute. That's book-based. It's middle grade serialized fiction. Check us out if you like to read Goosebumps and shit.
Super serial.
Super serials.
The one film I did most recently was House of Oddities, the story of the Atrocity Exhibition.
Award-winning House of Oddities. I mean, come on, it's won. I mean, what's it won? Tell me, come on.
Well,
out with it.
Well, it's won a couple. It's best director.
Oh, only best director, huh?
The Horror Realm Film Festival about 2 years ago.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Recently, we won best costume at the.
I saw that. It was in New York that you were in,
yes,
right?
Yes, it was New York. Long Island. We won best costume, which and the best part about it was at the Macabre Fair Film Festival. That's it.
Yeah.
The best part was I beat out people who actually did spend a crap ton of money.
I mean, and there
and
was
time.
a documentary. What an accomplishment. I mean, that's something so nice for the Atrocity players to know that their work was actually, in that respect, award-winning. I mean, they work so hard on their craft. It's so nice to know that,
Well, the funny part was it was the only documentary there.
Oh, interesting.
The only one.
It's crazy.
I mean, the festival kind of catered to horror movies and, thrillers and, off the wall movies. And I mean, my movie, I guess, fit that niche. But the one thing is, like, I'm discovering this now, I always knew who my audience was whenever I made movies. When I was making horror movies, I made shorts for the most part, but I always knew who the end audience was.
Sure.
And this is the only time that I had an idea who the audience was, but it was so niche and so precise that it really doesn't have any appeal outside.
Interesting.
That's the one thing, because like I had the
I think it actually has.
Oh, go ahead, John.
It has somewhat of a wide audience. It has, horror. It has variety. It has documentary. So I think
maybe
it does...
a little of the novelty aspect.
Yeah. But I mean, I had talked to a couple of the professionals while I was at Macabre Fair, and they said, "Oh, it was very brave of you to make a movie that isn't marketable."
That's like telling you, "Oh, you look so good even though you're sick." Like, that's like not a compliment, but a compliment.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way that I took it. I was kind of like,
thanks.
So let me get this straight. It's brave that I made a movie that I can't make money back on.
I mean, I hate when people say something's brave. Like, oh my God, you're so brave for wearing a crop top. Like, the implication there is so clear. Like, you should not be doing that. Like, you're so brave for doing a movie that isn't marketable.
Yeah. I kind of thought it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, is it brave when you keep winning awards? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Pretty sure.
John, you still there?
Yeah.
Just
okay.
listen to us
just making sure.
dither on. So, well, how about, John, do you want to kind of like break it down as to what we will be talking about on this episode of Cinema Psychos?
Well, we'll be talking about the landmark court case, Batman v Superman, which I think has to do with the implications of winged vigilantes. Excuse me. But before we get to that, we decided to kind of talk about probably the most polarizing of all the Batman films, because I think everyone's in pretty good agreement that the Schumacher films are crap.
Yeah,
the Nolan films are pretty universally liked, except for Murphy Burn, in the last one. The 89 Batman movie, has its detractors here and there, but it's pretty much, it's pretty well liked. Has its own audience as well. But Batman Returns, Tim Burton's art house guise as a superhero movie, is probably one of the most confusing superhero movies, and also one of the weirdest sequels to a superhero movie, and the weirdest way to
do that kind of film that's ever been attempted.
I would agree.
I think you covered it, dude.
I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Good job.
I guess we'll just start. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen Batman Returns,
Number 1, go home.
Yeah, number 1, go home, find it on Netflix, pirate it, whatever.
We don't care.
I don't care.
If nothing else, Michelle Pfeiffer is in skin tight latex.
That should be the only reason right there to go ahead and drop everything right now and go watch it. Because honestly, for me, that was my first crush right there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Was Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Well, I'll tell you what. I feel like we need to like drop some
I thought you were going to say Danny.
Danny DeVito was your first crush. Well, I feel like we need to kind of disclose where we come from at this, because like you guys are both huge Batman fans from like childhood. Like
in utero,
you both had the same set of Batman sheets as children. I mean, I know this because I'm good friends with you both. So like for me as a girl, like this was not something that was marketed to me, and like we're all the same generation, so like that's the same, but this wasn't anything that was marketed to me. So I did come to Batman and Batman Returns as an adult, even though I was vaguely aware of it at the time, like because I mean the toys were so heavily marketed, you know, but I feel like we need to kind of like mark it down that like you guys are super Batman expert.
Yeah, I mean I would agree with that. Pretty much my Batman obsession began at the moment when I was conceived, okay? And it hasn't stopped, to the chagrin of my mother, who kept saying, oh, this is a phase, he'll grow out of it. Well, guess what?
Oh,
we're going on 30, 31 now, and I'm still Batman strong. I'm wearing...
He's literally wearing a Batman t-shirt. I can confirm.
There are worse things to be into. I don't know why your mom was so like worried about Batman.
It's true. It's not like you were into Blow.
It was the matter of that I had the Batman costume that I wore every day.
Okay. Full disclosure, he's not wearing the costume.
I'm not
guys.
wearing it now, but this was like, five-year-old Brian. Damn. 5-year-old Brian pretty much wore the Batman costume all the time.
I could see that so not being charming after day 20.
Yeah. But it was a matter of, I was obsessed with it. I actually had the tape, the Batman 89 movie, and I pretty much played that thing till it broke.
Oh, man.
Okay? And then I recorded when the Batman Returns came out, they had, started to play the 89 movie on TV. And I had my mom had recorded that because my Batman tape had broken.
So she had just like fully succumbed to your obsession by then and just went with it.
I think she still thought it was going to be he'll grow out of it. He'll get older, grow out of it. No.
Nope.
No. Riddled with really sweet 1992 commercial spots.
Oh, yeah. The Taco Bell, what was it, Johnny Cash ad. I can remember that one.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
Again, it wasn't marketed to me, so I feel like I was a little deaf to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Like to think the commercials you actually remember.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, honestly.
It is.
But I mean, for me, I saw Batman Returns in theaters when most kids weren't seeing that movie in theaters because there was some big controversy about it, mainly because it had sexual undertones.
Oh yeah, was it PG-13?
It was PG-13,
and that was back in the day. When people, so like the rating system, just briefly, PG-13 was created so that you had like something to straddle PG and R to make movies more edgy. But now,
it was Spielberg's idea because of two of the films he was involved in, Temple of Doom and Gremlins. A lot of critics were upset and families were upset, saying these films are way too intense for PG, but they're certainly not ours. So Steven Spielberg suggested creating a bridge between PG and R, and that's actually where PG-13 came from.
And I think it's a shame now because a lot of movies that could be R-rated are bumped down to PG-13 to like the detriment of the film to make a wider audience so that younger people can see it because they're, catering to the demographic.
Right. I would say that was true up until Deadpool.
Well, yeah, I mean, Deadpool's changed that. I mean, that was a big deal, don't you think?
Yes.
For a comic book movie to be R. And did you see
be successful?
And did you see the PSAs that they had sent out where they were like, "No, seriously, don't bring your kids and be upset because this is R and we're not joking."
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, but what's funny is that Hollywood pretty much looks at superhero movies as, it has to be a cash cow. It has to be, the widest possible audience.
Blockbuster.
With the exception of women. It will not target women. Even today, it won't.
Which is dumb because we want superhero movies too. Suck it, Hollywood.
Yeah. But it's. I just find it really, honestly, distressing to see that the sexism that still exists back then, where you weren't targeted for Batman Returns, it's still around.
Well, I mean, we'll get way more into this later, but all
twisted
but
90s version of Zero.
the 90s version of
really,
what?
But the 90s is that way.
Can you repeat that? We couldn't hear you.
Oh, about that, yeah. But they kind of tried to portray Catwoman as some kind of backwards feminist icon of, but that's kind of how we saw things in the 90s in that twisted kind of way, where that character was a feminist,
Right.
leader for girls. I think they were trying to market it with Catwoman.
Yeah, I could see that, and I could see how, I mean, like, the whole thing was really skewed in the 90s. I mean, but even now, we're still struggling with a lot of that. I mean, we spoiler alert, we will be talking about Star Wars because we're nerds.
We are nerds.
And, but, the whole thing with no toys featuring Rey, who is the main character of Star Wars. Guys, girls like this shit. Just get over it. Give us the toys.
Here's the thing. You're most people understand that. It is the executives at these film companies.
And, like, there was literally directives to exclude her from things because they didn't think anybody would want to play with a Rey toy. That is so dumb. She's the main character of the
they did the
frickin'
same exact
movie.
thing. Look at every Marvel movie. Do you ever see any Black Widow merchandise? Do you ever see any Scarlet Witch merchandise?
To the chagrin of men everywhere, there's no molded plastic of Scarlett Johansson's ass.
Yeah, I know.
It's a shame.
That's kind of creepy.
It's a shame, though.
There's a thing called the internet. You don't need a little action figure.
I mean, I don't judge. I'm on everyone's side here.
Yeah.
I have a G.I. Joe up my butt right now.
But I mean,
it's the spelunking member of Cobra.
The spelunking member of Cobra, if you will. Excellent. But I mean, I think it is. It's interesting to see where franchises have come now because, I mean, I think it's still fair to say that Batman Returns was a film first and a comic book entity second.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore, as is illustrated with Batman v Superman, which, I don't know, the more time that passes, guys, like, the stupider and stupider it looks to me.
Yeah.
Number one, I cannot stand Ben Affleck as an actor. I cannot stand him. I think he is the worst actor in the earth. Like, he's so bad.
He just plays Ben Affleck.
Yeah, he just plays Ben Affleck. He has no character skills. And I mean, yeah, he's directed a couple of pretty good movies, but he had damn good scripts to work with. That makes a big difference.
An actor than him.
I'm going in the same way that I went in with Dark Knight. I remember distinctively hearing that Heath Ledger was going to be the worst fucking Joker ever, that he could never hold a candle to Jack Nicholson, that there's nothing on earth that could ever, instill the type of performance that Nicholson did.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing every one of those like it was on forums, and
2008,
this was 2008. I mean, I know it seems not that long ago, but it was 8 years ago. But I remember seeing those, and I kept thinking, I'll give it a try. And I was pleasantly surprised by what I saw.
Well, I mean, my God, who knew that, like, in the dude from 10 Things I Hate About You, that like, burgeoning artist existed? Like, I mean, he really was brilliant. He was starting to do better stuff when...
Well, Brokeback.
With Brokeback, we realized, okay, this guy has some talent.
That might have been it, though.
But, I mean, there was at least, like, a stepping stone. I just feel like Affleck's never been a good actor in anything. And his smug face really pisses me off.
What about Argo?
I mean, he was fine. He was like a distressed Ben Affleck in it.
He was really good in Argo.
Was he really good, or was everybody really good around him? That makes a big difference.
You do have a point there.
The biggest example of this is Mean Girls. Everyone's like, oh, Lindsay Lohan was so good in that.
No, she wasn't.
Everybody else was. They made her look good. Did everybody else make Ben look good? I feel like maybe they did.
Ben Affleck was very good in the after school special about steroids.
I remember that one.
John loves that damn movie so much.
Yeah. As I said,
where he played Ben Affleck on steroids.
Yeah, where he played Ben Affleck on steroids.
Ben Affleck on steroids.
I mean, I think, John, you agree with me about the dude's performance skills, yeah?
Yeah, I mean that movie is not going to be an acting off thing. Anytime Jesse Eisenberg was on set, that Zack Snyder took the day off because he's clearly not directed by anything.
Oh, fuck, I forgot Zack Snyder's directing. I forgot about that utterly.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah. I did you like Watchmen?
I mean, as much as I can or could have, I think, without knowing the source material. I mean, I ended up going back and like familiarizing myself with the graphic novel, and I mean, it was really hard to enjoy the movie after that because I thought that the comic book was a much better entity.
I mean, honestly, the source material is always going to be the better entity
for the most part.
You know,
I think that's.
I've
true.
only found that untrue one time, and that was with Hellraiser.
Oh, interesting.
Hellbound Heart, I like it, but when you know, and also it you know, it's important to mention that Clive Barker, the guy who wrote the source material, ended up directing the film. So I mean, you know, he knew what to include, what not to include. But I always found that Hellraiser, the first one in particular, was superior to the book.
Interesting. You know what? I can second that because I would say that speaking of Eisenberg, the Facebook movie, The Social Network.
I hate that movie.
I'll tell you what, it's so much better than the book. The book is dry as shit. Because I was like, oh, I love the movie. Get the book. Nope, that book is so boring. I like read it and immediately just like gave it to half books or half price books. I was like, I need store credit for this because it was awful. It was just boring. You know what I mean? What'd you say?
What was that?
In terms of graphic novels, Road to Perdition, not many people know that was originally a graphic novel, and the film is leaps and bounds better than the actual graphic novel ever could have wanted to be.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, that is a really good movie, though. To be fair, that is a very, very good interpretation of a graphic novel, honestly. But I don't know. I just I guess like because obviously John and I are married, we talk about this stuff like all the time, and I mean, we've said on so many occasions lately that like Superman sucks. Like, do we live in an age where Superman is like sort of dated?
I think it's a matter of Superman is an element of a different time, and I mean, you can necessarily call it the cynicism of our time, but with terrorism and all sorts of bullshit and Donald Trump, I mean,
you said terrorism already.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Thank you, John.
But I'm just saying.
Now on an watch list. Be very careful.
Yeah. There you go. What happened to Brian? Oh, he disappeared. But I just find that with the amount of bullshit that honestly that the news basically turns out, it's kind of hard to have a hero like Superman in that environment, where honestly a hero like Green Arrow or Batman fit more of the the environment we're in right now.
Well, too, I mean, I think it's so important for even a superhero to have limitations.
Yeah.
Because the stakes actually mean something. Like, Bruce Wayne has endless resources, lots of money. He's super good at being Batman, but at the end of the day, he's human. He's mortal, and I mean, he has his back broken by Bane. He can be hurt, and there is always the possibility that he could be killed. But like, with Superman, it seems so much more impossible, and the dude can like literally pretty much do anything, but then doesn't.
Yeah.
It's very strange to have something all powerful like that. It doesn't seem to jive with, like you said, like our current times, I mean, not to harp on a common cliche, but like in a post 9/11 world, do we have a place for Superman, or is it just from an era where we just can't relate to that time anymore?
That's always bothered me, like just in terms of storytelling. And it's not just Superman. You can pop over to Marvel too with Wolverine and the Incredible Hulk. Like, there is no consequences to any of the action because I have no clue what, if anything, hurts these guys.
Yeah,
what could kill them.
It's the rise of the life model decoy.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
every single time someone dies, it's that was a life model decoy.
Yeah, because I mean, literally, you'd have to rip Wolverine's head off, probably. Like, How I mean
Destroy the brain.
Destroy the brain. Yeah.
But I mean, I think like when there's no stakes, it becomes infinitely and exponentially less interesting.
So Batman's basically a humanizing figure. We can relate to him.
Yeah, and I think that was what part of what made Batman Returns so dark. Because you did know that this was, number one, a mortal guy who could be killed, but he was also like kind of flirting with the edge of madness. And I think that's something that Tim Burton brought us in Batman that we didn't experience in other iterations of the character is like, I mean, he's a grown-ass man who dresses up like a fucking bat and goes and fights crime. You have to have a part of the villain in you, in that case, to be a vigilante hero, don't you think? I mean, that was what the first movie was about, how similar he and the Joker really were. When they make the same comment about the apartment of Vicky Vale,
Well, that's kind of that a lot of that was the producer who decided that the whole canon of Batman, not killing his enemies and always, not going to their level. And he kind of said, fuck that. It's the 90s. Let's make him badass and a killer. That's why there's multiple murders in Batman Returns. And yeah, the Tim Burton version of Batman is kind of crazy. He's right on that cusp of being just as much a villain, if not a villain who is kind of more just flirting on the more correct side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me at least, my appeal to Batman Returns was just that it was dark. Because I always felt that the character was dark. I never liked the TV show, like the Adam West stuff.
Yeah, to make it funny.
And I'm just like, that's a mockery of the source material. If you look at the source material, Batman carried around a fucking gun.
Oh, I mean, a lot of the comic books are really dark.
Yeah, and even the early ones in the 30s. But I like the fact it was dark. Now here's the thing, and I want to know, for you, John and Elaine, you never saw it when you were a kid, right?
I didn't. If you guys want to bro out, do it by all means.
John, did you feel that as you viewed it as a kid, you had one, point of view on it, and then as an adult, you had a different point of view? Because I know that I growing up, I loved Batman Returns to fucking death. I thought it was amazing. But I watched it recently, preparing for this review and everything, and I found that a lot of the things that I loved about it drive me fucking up the walls.
No way.
Well, with the whole movie, I think like as a kid, the key thing that, people that were adults when that movie came out, I was 8, but the thing that bothered adults was really something that's overlooked by a lot of people in film, and that's just the overall tone of the film. And it was bleak, full of despair. No one's people die. One was basically shunned, turned into an infantile state, and then brought upon his own death. And Catwoman kills herself, and Batman's miserable and alone and forced to live out his life as Batman, a world that he tried to get out of but will never be able to truly get away from. Gotham City's still full of despair and corruption, and it's just one of those movies where you go, wow, I feel like shit after this movie, because it's just full of just kind of bleak nastiness. But as a kid, I didn't really pick up on that. I appreciated the visuals and the way that the carnival-esque aspect of the film. Burton has a very childish playfulness to his work, but also kind of a very disturbing darkness that's underlying inside of that playfulness. It's kind of a balance that he used to do well before he just sold his soul to Disney. Obviously it's incredibly flawed in the sense that the film, especially when you compare it to the Nolan films, is very operatic. It's mostly derived on emotion and feeling and not a whole lot of logic, unlike, the Nolan films where they have to explain everything. Everything has to have some grounding in reality, where this film is more like a dream, an opera, or it's just some kind of fantastical fairy tale based in kind of a more urban setting. Yeah,
I mean, I agree completely with that, and obviously the Nolan films are grounded in reality. That's their appeal. But I mean, for me, the plot holes and a lot of the things that I'm just going, why would Batman need this? Like I mentioned this to you, you know, off mic and everything, but why the fuck does Bruce Wayne have to mirror the bat signal, you know, specifically in a very choreographed, coordinated way? The signal gets mirrored. One, the laws of physics don't work that way. Two, the signal gets mirrored to a bunch of mirrors around Wayne Manor, and somehow end up exactly where he's sitting at in the library. Now, my question to you is this. What if he was taking a shit? What if he was eating dinner? What if he was anywhere else in the massive, you know, manor?
Simple. When he takes a dump, he has Alfred sit in that chair.
No, I mean, I'm
Nailed
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying, the things like that make zero sense to me as an adult. And I get it. It was like, oh, well, this is cool. This is how Batman would know. I'm going, there's a much simpler way to know that. It's called have fucking cameras on the outside. Wouldn't you want to have cameras pointing at the sky? I mean, that would make more sense.
Or maybe Batman doesn't take a shit ever.
He always takes a bat shit.
Why
Okay,
do you think
everybody knows that.
Why do you think he's so cranky all the time?
What was that, John?
He poops in the suit. It's actually a very nice vessel.
He poops in the suit. Oh
He's got a filtration system built into it, like the astronauts. You know?
Yeah, I mean, but there was a really significant rewrite in the movie, though. Do you think that's maybe part of your problem with the logic, you know, for Batman Returns? Because, like, originally that movie was supposed to be dark as fuck, where, like, the kids were murdered. And then, like, they did test audiences, right? And they were like, we don't really like child death.
Well, that's my other thing, too. The Penguin's plan, okay, is to kidnap children and drown them. Okay, that's the plan. It's
dark.
What does that accomplish?
I mean,
that accomplishes nothing.
Would you say, John?
Well, that does follow, and I mean, this is a whole different thing to get into, but that does kind of fall into what a lot of people have said is very not so secretive anti-Semitism that kind of permeates that movie.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, the German name Shrek.
That's fair.
Obviously, that kind of. Well, here's the thing, though. They pulled that from Max Schreck, who played Nosferatu. That was what that was pulled from.
They sure did.
I never really saw the anti-Semitism that was in it.
I mean, that's good since you imprinted on it as a kid, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
if it is there, I'm glad it didn't affect you, you know.
No, I mean, I never really saw it that way. I just didn't understand. I'm like, the Penguin is supposed to be this criminal mastermind. Like he's a mobster. Honestly.
Yeah, and that never read to me because I mean I saw it as an adult and like he just seems kind of like a bumbling psychopath.
Yeah,
well, that's Tim Burton,
right?
Yeah,
like, you have to understand that Tim Burton wanted to make the movie that he wanted to make, and you know he was not a comic book fan, he was not a Batman fan, so he kind of saw like, oh, you mean there's a guy who's a penguin? Like here's exactly what I think that is, and to hell with people that you know, are fans of this and they want the character that they know from the comic books. I'm going to make what I want to make. And that upset a lot of hardcore fans as well.
That's
right.
Because
he was just basically making whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah.
You did explain that to me after the fact because that was always my impression of the Penguin character. And I think, John, you had to explain that to me after the fact that, like, no, like, the Penguin's actually good at his shit.
Yeah, he's basically the mob boss of Gotham City.
Yeah.
Like, that's his thing. But, I mean, for me, I got that he wanted to go away from the comic books, and that's fine. I get that. But it just went so off the base that I just think things like just the basics of narrative filmmaking, like things making fucking sense, just got lost in the visuals. And that's my biggest grief with Batman Returns now. Now, as a kid, I was obsessed with the visuals just like you, John. But just now, I watch, I'm just going, none of this makes any fucking sense.
The visuals are still amazing. Though.
And they still are amazing. I don't deny that. But it's just like, yeah, I'm seeing a Tim Burton movie. Literally, Tim Burton is in every character. Okay? And that's fine. but it's like his image got lost. Not the image, but his image just permeated so much that it made the basics of storytelling and just things making sense just obstructed. And that's kind of the way that I viewed it now. And that's my biggest gripe with it, is that he easily could have kept, his visual style and his penchant for character easily. But just make sure the shit makes sense. That's what we're always... Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's no surprise that he was an animator first. He is... Right. So visually based, and you're right, like the scene where he's sitting in the chair doesn't make any sense, but to him, the mirror goes to the one mirror and it goes on the wall, and he stands up, and he's standing in front of the bat symbol and goes to a wide shot. All Tim is thinking, yeah, you imagine what this will look like, not and you're right, it makes absolutely no sense, but it's weird in the sense that I'm not sure that he cared, like we, the audience, do, but I don't think he wanted something visually stunning and didn't really care if plot threads were lost, if things didn't quite fit together, if things were having trouble making, as long as it was his orgasm of visuals.
Right. And I think now, I think you can almost see where he's at now, where literally the orgasm of visuals that's the only movie you get nowadays. Like, any a semblance of a plot is gone out the fucking window at this point, and I think that Batman Returns probably was the first time that you got a peek at future Tim Burton.
Yeah, because I think with Logic, that did deteriorate even from the first film, and they weren't done apart that far. But I think that as opposed to the first one, it just all became about the visuals, and it's like John said, it's operatic, it's lyric. There is something very beautiful about it. But if you go to break the story down, you really, there's a lot of problems with it, because I think the whole Max Schreck character is almost something that doesn't quite fit.
Harvey Dent?
Well, yeah. Do you want to speak
he's
to that?
He's supposed to be Harvey Dent. Yeah, he was. It's not just a rumor. It was originally supposed to be Harvey Dent. I don't know what that studio did with Billy D. Williams or what he did with them, but there was some level of falling out, because not only was essentially clearly the Two-Face character replaced by somebody that was in no way involved in the comic book lore, but then when they went to make the third one, completely recast him. They actually bought him out because he wanted to play Two-Face so badly. They bought him out and then brought in Tommy Lee Jones. But yeah, so Max Schreck, I do believe, was supposed to be Harvey Dent, which would have made a lot more sense, and then they clearly just made enough rewrites and made him a business tycoon to kind of fit the script and keep the structure they had. Because really, Max Schreck is not important to the movie.
I think he's important in the standpoint that, you see a lot of characters that I disagree. I look at Max Schreck as being you could make the argument that Penguin is a villain because of his circumstances. Okay, his circumstances turned him to evil. He basically would be Bruce Wayne if the circumstances were in the positive. Okay, and that's kind of the message that Tim Burton did, was that way. I look at Max Schreck as he's the villain who just literally is the villain.
Well, villain by choice.
Villain. Well, I don't think it's by choice. I think he just naturally is the villain.
Interesting.
And because you look at it, he created Selena Kyle. Okay, not Selena Kyle, but he created Catwoman.
Yeah.
Okay. He also manipulated the Penguin, to run for mayor for his own personal gain. He wanted to build a power plant. The mayor of Gotham City said, "No, not going to do that." He wasn't going to work with Bruce Wayne, so he looked at, okay, fine. I'll go ahead, force a recall, have Penguin be the mayor, and I'll get my power plant. Either way, I look at him as he's the true villain in the movie. Penguin, the way they made him up to be, and this, as I said, this I disagree with. The way they made Penguin to begin with, but in the terms of the film, they made him to basically be a tragic villain. You're supposed to empathize with him. and he's
Interesting.
basically this two sides of the same coin of the rich billionaire because he comes from a wealthy family. The Cobblepotts were wealthy; they were basically akin to the Waynes. So that's kind of where I look at it. I don't look at him as Shrek as a pointless character. I could definitely see where if he was Two-Faced, that would basically be better, especially because he could share a lot of the empathy traits from Penguin.
Well, it would have made a lot more sense too. I mean, instead of having this non-canon character that does have a very like puppeteer kind of role over the other characters, especially the other villains.
But I mean, I liked his character. I thought he was a decent character, created specifically for the film, obviously. Yeah. But I also see a lot of. Oh, go ahead, John.
Little bit of a mustache twirler, though. I mean, he was.
Well, I mean, that's walking for you,
but, But that's also Burton for you, and I mean, although I will say this about the film: like the story is convoluted, it's full of holes, but I really think that Burton did try to. Whether he succeeded or not is completely debatable, but he focused more on character with this film than he did story.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely the truth there. The last point I want to make about Walken is his character traits can be traced to characters within the comic books. Okay, you look at characters like Rupert Thorne in the animated series, for example.
Oh, okay.
And Roland Daggett, who are characters from the animated series. They also were characters, I believe, in the comic books. And
ooh, you're going deep here.
I'm going deep. I know my Batman. But those characters have the rich businessman, manipulator vibe to them. And I think they were probably, I'm not entirely sure if those characters existed in the comics prior to the animated series, which came out around the same time that Batman Returns came out, or if they were products of the animated series on its own. But either way, I think you could say that either Walken was inspired by them, or he was the antithesis of those characters. That honestly, I like those characters in the animated series. I think they're very good. I think they're different from just the Jokers and Penguins and Riddlers of the canon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting that like we do have the different social standings so prominently displayed in both, good guy and villain alike. But I just wonder, like, do you think, just to bring it over to, the more the more modern film, I mean, do you think that that's going to be explored at all in Batman versus Superman? Because I feel like right now they don't explore metaphor or like the state of the world we live in comic book movies anymore. I feel like it's just like explosions and making the stakes really high and the world's gonna end and why the fuck is Amy Adams in this movie? I just don't feel like there's anything that they really have to say. I mean, I don't really think that Zack Snyder has anything really to say, because even when he tries to say something, like it just comes out like completely ass backwards.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that, because I have from the trailers that I've seen, the film just looks goofy and a complete letdown, and just it's going to be a complete disaster.
It does look like hot bullshit.
But what I've heard from people is that they have been kind of straddling the R line with the film, and apparently the studio is very worried about it because it deals with extremely dark and conflicting issues of gods and power that that people hold in these situations, and what kind of is Superman a terrorist, and just they're worried that the film is just going to be once again just like Batman Returns, a little dark, a little too remote, handling possibly way too heavy of situations for a popcorn superhero movie. But then I hear other things that says it's just the complete opposite, and it's just a big piece of garbage fluff. So I don't know what.
So either it sucks, or the studio's afraid that it doesn't suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see. For me, it's kind of difficult because, I am trying to go in thinking positively. I did like Man of Steel. I'll be the first to say it. I thought it was a different interpretation.
I think you're alone. I fucking hated that movie. Oh my God, that movie was so boring.
Well, just let me quickly say, the reason I liked it was because I'm not a fan of Superman. Okay?
Me neither.
I'm not. I don't like him. I always looked at him as, in the pantheon of superheroes, as the dummy jock.
Right.
Okay? Batman was the brainy emo kid. Okay,
Batman's the emo
of
kid.
course he
I
was.
love
All he
it.
does is bitch and complain about his parents. Okay, I get that.
And
okay?
listen to Dashboard Confessional.
Yeah, but or
Superman was a hall monitor.
yes, Superman was the hall monitor, and Iron Man was banging chicks left and right. Okay,
He so was.
he so was.
So true.
So I don't like Superman to begin with, but I watched Man of Steel, and a lot of what I saw was humanizing Superman, which
is funny because he's not human.
right, but it's a matter of you either love it or you hate it. Me, because of the fact that I grew up watching Christopher Reeve, and then that Lois and Clark, not Lois and Clark,
The Avengers of Lois and Clark.
yeah,
Yeah. What, Dean Cain?
yeah, the Dean Cain one,
Yeah.
and
Terry Hatcher.
yeah, and then even the Superman animated series, you see an archetype that is the dummy jock, and then you get this Superman, which one, he is dealing with the fact that he is the only one of his kind, and then he has to encounter someone who is of his kind, but has the exact opposite moral compass that he has.
It's true.
And is hell-bent on destroying what is his, adopted people. And then he's got a choice. I think that's different than any type of Superman you've seen before. You can look at Superman 2, and, Superman 2, which everybody loves for the most part. Even I like it. But it doesn't necessarily go any deeper than, Terrence Stamp's, Kneel Before Zod and all this other stuff. You know the lines, but do you really, empathize with any of the characters?
Or like give a damn.
Or give a damn? Exactly.
That's what you were talking. What you said about going back and watching Batman Returns, and it doesn't hold up. For me, I loved Superman 2 when I was real little, and my God, I know I never overly cared for Superman either. I just really liked superhero movies when I was a kid. That movie, dear God, does not hold up, and that's what happened when you fired Donner for Linkletter. It's like, let's turn it into a farcical romp.
Right, but it's a matter of I watch Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, and I'm seeing human elements added to someone who is in essence considered a god.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought the rendering of the material was such a shame, because to make someone's death by fucking tornado boring, I mean, that takes a special skill set.
That does.
I mean, because
I won't disagree with that.
Because for me, for most movies, my hallmark is does it feel like I'm sitting in a movie theater watching a movie, or am I taken somewhere else? What is the passage of time to me? And I know that, since we all went to grad school together, we studied the same thing about the phenomenon of watching a film in the theater. There's something really special and vaguely scientific that happens when you're watching it in that environment. And usually I can be swept away. Even if a movie isn't that great, I can be swept away, and the passage of time does not feel real. It feels like about 20 minutes and the movie's over. And that's usually the hallmark of a good movie. I looked at my watch 7 times during this fucking movie. I've never done that before in any movie ever. And it just dragged on forever. And it just seemed like one sort of mini mission after the next. It did not have regular script structure to me. I didn't see plot point 1, plot point 2. I just saw
I did kind of like that though.
Episodes. And I don't know. I mean,
like that, John?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of Nolan for you, that kind of jumping around timeline wise. But I've always liked that and any kind of storytelling. So I'm a little biased to that kind of structure.
I mean, I do too. I love me a good nonlinear, but not Zack fucking Snyder nonlinear.
Well, I think the other thing too, and this is just like we're biased towards Tim Burton. We think of a Tim Burton movie, and we're thinking of literally wacky, goofy craziness with a Danny Elfman, score.
And isn't that funny? Because I used to get excited. I'd be like, oh, it's a Tim Burton film. And now I'm like, oh no, I'm not falling for that again.
Yeah. But I think the same thing happens when you hear Zack Snyder. I think I think all of us are biased, because what's the first thing we think of? We think of 300. We think of Sucker Punch, which everyone hates.
Sucker Punch was fucking terrible. That's why.
Hate Sucker
it was
Punch.
awful.
Sucker Punch's mom hates Sucker Punch.
Yeah, exactly.
Zack Snyder's mom hates Sucker Punch.
But it's just a matter of, I think we kind of are biased to think that the movie is going to be, on par with Sucker Punch, or it's going to be a lot of slow-mo, lot of unrealistic physics thrown in the mix. And I mean, I think we're already seeing, at least from the trailers that I've seen, that, yeah, we're getting a little bit of that.
Yeah, I just think the premise is absurd. If Batman and Superman were really fighting, if they really hated each other, and Superman wanted Batman dead, poof, he'd be dead. Superman's a fucking alien, and he could just put his fucking fist through Batman's heart.
I disagree with that.
Come at me, bro.
I will throw him into the sun.
Come at me, bro.
Here is why. Superman does not have the scientific or tactical skill that Batman has. Batman is a badass, not necessarily for physicality, although he is literally at the peak of human physicality. Everyone can agree with that. Human physicality. However, whereas Superman has increased strength, has the ability to fly, shoot lasers out of his eyes, all that bullshit, the one thing he does not have is the ability to tactically take down an enemy with just your mind. And Batman can do that. And that's why I personally think Batman would be the first one to exploit the weaknesses. The fact that, I know they are introducing kryptonite into this one. So Batman will be the first one to construct a weapon that uses kryptonite, probably kryptonite gauntlets. Okay?
Okay.
And if you look even at, say, and this gets out of Batman v Superman, but if you look at, the Batman animated movies, for example, there is one in particular, I forget the name of it. It's a DC animated film, but the plot of it is that Batman has created contingency plans to take down every single member of the Justice League if they ever got too powerful to the point where they threatened Earth.
I did not know that.
Okay?
That's very interesting.
And one of them is Batman using kryptonite.
Interesting.
Okay? He has it with every single one. And that's because Batman methodically analyzes every opponent and finds their weak spot. So that's the one caveat I would say, is that where Superman has strength, yes, he can go ahead and kill him instantly if he wanted to. But Batman can anticipate every single action that Superman would take because Superman is predictable.
Interesting.
That is why Batman would have the advantage. It's strength over brains, and I will take brains over strength any day.
I respect that. I think you have a well thought out argument. I just still think that Superman could snap his goddamn bat neck and he'd be bat dead. I don't know. I think if it was a hair trigger moment, and I mean, Superman can dent steel.
Yeah.
I think he could literally put his fist through Batman's heart.
Did you ever see or read the comic book, Dark Knight Returns?
Mm-mm. No, I haven't read the comic.
John, have you read that comic book?
Of course.
Okay.
It's required reading.
Of course, he says.
What, John? What did Batman do to stop Superman in that comic book?
Oh boy, I hated Superman's involvement in that story. And it was around the third act. Well, if it was a
it was around the third act.
Oh boy, what did he do?
If you don't remember, I can go ahead and tell you.
Well, he had on. I remember he had on the same kind of armor that we see.
They took that from that comic book.
Interesting.
Give up?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I cannot recall.
Basically, what Batman did was he enlisted the help of Oliver Queen to basically use his skills as an archer. He had crafted an arrow that had a tip that was kryptonite, and that upon hitting Superman would vaporize and go into his bloodstream and make him weak enough for Batman to beat the fucking shit out of him. And that's how he beat him. And that's the line that they said, remember that this is the one day where your strength didn't count for shit, and honestly, this is where I beat you. That's taken from the comic book.
Oh, all right.
So
God
that is an example of what I'm saying, that, yes, I don't deny that Superman can snap people's necks. I don't deny that he could throw you into the fucking sun. But the one thing I do deny is that in a matchup between Batman and Superman, my money is on Batman. Because I know that Batman can think his way and pull some fucking thing out of his ass that would get him out of that jam. Be it Oliver Queen shooting an arrow that vaporizes the kryptonite, or a suit that, or just being able to anticipate Superman's every move. That's just my point.
I think the Clayface who fought the Ninja Turtle is going to win the battle. Oh, I'm sorry, that's supposed to be Dune. Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
I mean that is a very sound argument. I guess I couldn't ask for like a better final note for our first show.
I agree. That
Batman is going to prevail.
Final analysis on, now that there's been 3 or 4 full trailers, a couple teaser trailers. This is kind of an unfair question because you never know from a trailer if a film's going to be good or not.
Well, that's never stopped me from spouting off my mouth.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think this film's going to be? I'm gonna be
is 1 hot garbage or is 10 hot garbage?
1's hot garbage, 10 is really good. I'm gonna give it a 5 and just say so I'm gonna be completely just right down the middle, be that guy. I think it has the opportunity to be all right, but I think it has an opportunity to be a disaster. So I'm going to give it around a 5.
I'm an asshole, so I'm going to give it a 2. But if you guys want to get drunk and go see it, I am so down.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I think there's too much writing on this for them to release something that's complete total dog shit. Literally, if this movie doesn't, they've already said, if this movie does not perform well, there is no Justice League. It's gone. That's what they've said.
Interesting.
So I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic than you, John. I'm going to give it a 6.
Oh.
Okay.
None of us gave it a very high score, though, man.
I know. 5 and a 2. But I'm just saying, I'm going to give it a 6 just because I cannot see the executive saying, this thing, I guarantee this thing has been run through test audience after test audience after test audience, that they're going to make sure that this shit doesn't suck.
I mean, but the widespread opinion of what sucks and my opinion of what sucks, I feel like very strongly differs.
That's true.
There were people out there that liked Avengers too. I am not one of them.
That.
Right? Thank you.
Absolutely hated it too. Yeah.
We're in agreement.
Yeah. Well, that'll close out our show. Thank you for listening. Please be sure to like us on Facebook and the Twitter at Psycho Show. If you have a favorite movie that you'd like us to go ahead and review, or you have a question, please be sure to contact us at cinemapsychoshow@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to catch our next show, which will be available for download on iTunes on every Friday. That's what we're going to try to plan for.
Sounds good, and we'll do personal Twitter too, I suppose.
Yes, personal Twitter too.
Cool.
Elaine, you want to give your Twitter?
you can reach me at LA_Croft on Twitter.
John,
he doesn't have Twitter.
Not on Twitter, guys. I use CV Radio, the gay prostitutes Twitter.
He transcribes by Owl.
Oh, okay. He does
how
the
he
Harry
communicates.
Potter thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me. Oh, go ahead, John.
Sorry, when the YouTube channel starts to come out, then I'm going to join the rest of the world and start tweeting. But as of right now, not on Twitter.
Fair enough.
You can find me on Facebook, Brian Coddington, or you can find me on the Twitter as Brian Coddington. So,
cool.
Shoot me a message. Like us, all the social media bullshit.
Welcome to the Madhouse, everyone.
Welcome to the Madhouse.